Okay, good evening, friends. Good evening to all of you. Actually, I was taking a test discussion, and it happens very frequently that because you have to discuss 19 questions, not 19 in fact, yes, 19 questions I was discussing. Because this was modular test, so 19 questions were there in total. So it takes lots of time in discussing 19 questions. Yes, it was today live on YouTube as well. Some of you might have seen that. Okay. So result is out. You might be knowing, some of you who appeared for the exam. How many of you appeared? Or rather, how many of you have got through if you checked your result? Yes, prelims results. UPSC acting very fast and unexpectedly giving very fast results in what you can say even not full 20 days, and this is something which is quite good. I'm asking because there were some people who were appearing this year. I'm not asking to those who are going to appear 2021. I know most of you are going to appear in 2021. Okay, so let us start. We were talking about determinism. How do we know cutoff now, yaar? It will take some time to understand where the cutoff lies, and officially the cutoff will be coming in next, maybe May, something like that, April, May. When the results come, after that they are declaring the marks, as you know. So the official cutoffs would be known only in May 2021. Unofficially we'll try to guess, but let us see what so many students would be telling, how much they were getting from the keys and how much, whether they are in or not. So that will give us an idea. Okay, so let us start. As I am saying, from here we are going to start with environmental determinism. Environmental determinism. Okay, so very clearly we know that environmental determinism was already part and parcel of geography even in the ancient times. Even if you talk about the medieval times, most of the periods of geography were, there was presence of environmental determinism, but it was not very much that much scientific type of determinism, which was specifically based upon cause effect relationship. Okay, they used some deterministic ideas. They basically, that determinism was in the form of the fact that they were more physical geographers. Physical geography is deterministic geography. Okay, so that is how it was deterministic. But if we talk about particularly about environmental determinism, and if you remember, we had talked in the Arabic period, there was one first environmental determinism. What was the name that we talked about? कोई बता सकता है? He is referred to as the first environmentalist or environmental determinist. What was the name? A medieval geographer who specifically tried to link how culture, how environment is controlling everything. याद है किसी को? It was Ibn Khaldun. Ibn Khaldun was the person who is referred to as the first environmentalist. ठीक है? Okay, so let us start. It was Ratzel in his book Anthropogeography 1 developed the philosophy of scientific determinism, and which had distinct influence of Newtonian cause-effect relationship and Darwin's evolutionary theory. He projected his determinism on scientific lines. In the case of evolution of species, human is similar to other animals in that they were result of evolution. Direct implication of this conclusion was that natural laws were also applicable to humans. Okay, so the natural laws, the environmental laws were also applicable to humans. Humans are nothing but part of ecology. Thus, they were also subjected to same type of phenomena or the laws. That is basically the basic idea of environmental determinism. Darwinian theme had huge impact on Ratzel, who saw man as an end product of evolution and thus product of his environment molded by physical forces surrounding him and succeeding only when they made correct adjustment to their demands. ठीक है? His deterministic philosophy became more manifested in his treatment of political geography, where he tried to explain the emergence of states from the perspective of evolution. He saw state as an organism which undergoes growth until locally available resources are exhausted. At this time, territorial extension becomes a necessity for survival. The state needs Lebensraum or the living space in which they can exist and grow with natural tendencies of territorial expansion. So, we have all talked about this. इसमें कोई difficulty नहीं होना चाहिए. We have seen that how Ratzel ideas were deterministic in his Anthropogeography book. He has clearly displayed these deterministic ideas, both volume 1 and volume 2. But volume 2 was more physical geography. Volume 2, if you talk about, was also human geography. There also he has used the deterministic approach. But as we have seen before, that his deterministic approach still was having some possibilities. Okay? That is written here. And in fact, his determinism is he exemplified his determinism in his political geography writing, that Lebensraum and all those organic state concept that we talked about. Okay? So, I think till here there should not be any problem. Yes or no? Now, Ratzel was cautious, very clearly that we said cautious in approach, that he did not propagate a simple environmental determinism. So, his was not simple environmental determinism which was based upon direct relationship. Instead, his view, natural space does not directly produce human communities and their culture, but rather produces a natural setting for migratory and cultural movements across space, which then leads to spatially differentiated human activity patterns. Okay? So, can you see what he was saying, he was doing? That he is saying that natural space does not directly produce human communities and their cultures, but rather produces a natural setting. Can I say, have we seen that the Vidal's possibilism was also saying the same thing? That environment gives range of possibilities? Yes or no? Environment is giving range of possibilities to the human beings, and from these possibilities they are free to choose from among the given possibilities. So, can you see how radical determinism was not that much rigid, and why we said that? So, it was not definitive. Environment was just giving us kind of choices. This cautious approach of Ratzel is also seen in his wisdom to produce the second volume of Anthropogeography, which explained the details of cultural phenomena and later became source of inspiration of Vidal, who propounded the concept of possibilism. ठीक है, concept of possibilism. So that is one thing. Now let us do one question first and then we'll move on. Question is, how Darwin's theory impacted the development of determinism in geography. And 150 words. You have specifically 4 minutes to frame your answer. Take this time, very challenging, very good question. If you actually try, you will learn lots of things. This is one of the questions I take in 500 plus. So your time starts now, 8:32 it is in my watch. Okay, so let us talk about how this answer should have been written. Okay, so you can start directly because it is 150 word, you don't have too much space to write. So you can start directly and say that Darwinian ideas of natural selection and struggle had profound impact across the academics, geography, or you say in the discipline of geography, they helped, or it helped to strengthened the deterministic philosophy. ठीक है, deterministic philosophy. So can you see that how much direct I am while I am writing my introduction? कोई फालतू की बात नहीं. I didn't explain what was Darwinism and everything, Darwin's ideas. एक दो words, keywords लिए and I start writing. It is 150 word. I have to understand there is shortage of space. I have to write the main things. I have to make sure I know that examiner is smart, knowledgeable. So I need not treat him like a child. I have to explain him everything. I don't have to do that. And I also have to understand he is overburdened with work. Look at me. Those people may be even more overburdened with work. There's so much research work to be done. So I have to be very direct, save his time also. Okay. So a very short and crisp introduction, and then you start talking about the main body. So in main body, I'll talk about that Darwinian theory implied that humans were outcome of the evolutionary process. They were outcomes of the evolutionary process. Thus, the long held idea in geography, long held idea or philosophy, you write, held philosophy of metaphysical humanism in geography, particularly human geography was strongly challenged. So metaphysical humanism philosophy was strongly challenged. Now what was this metaphysical humanism? Metaphysical humanism, पहले भी बताया मैंने तुम लोगों को, it actually emerges from religion, and it was, it has been part and parcel of academics, particularly the social sciences, particularly the anti-realist philosophies. So what is this idea? Basically, that human beings are some type of special creatures, special species. And if you remember, jokingly I had before also said that they're special in the sense कि भगवान ने पूरा 1 week का छुट्टी लिया, took full 1 day 1 week off, and thought, let us create something which is very interesting, very responsible creature, who will bring good, who would be the leader of the world. Earth I have created. So in a very good mood, God went on to create the human beings. याद है? And thus what we do basically, that is why when we are talking about geography, and in geography we leave other species and we specifically talk about the human environment relations. That is basically metaphysical humanism. So we thought that we were something special. You can understand, this was so much ingrained in people, that when Darwin was giving his lecture, one noble lady of Britain, because England he was giving this lecture, London, she stood up and said to straight face of Darwin that, Mr. Darwin, it may be that your ancestors might be monkeys, but mine were not. Okay, so this much this idea was ingrained in people's mind, that we are something special, we are not animals. If I say even today to some person that I am animal, मैं जानवर हूँ, so he'll just think, if I say that I am animal or we are just like animals, so they'll just think like, okay, we are animals because our behavior not be like human being, we are bad, we are doing this thing bad, we are doing that thing bad. Automatically this will not come to his mind that I am saying biologically we are animals. Can you associate to what I am saying? Okay, so this metaphysical humanism is so much ingrained in our philosophies. So it was long held philosophy of metaphysical humanism in geography, particularly human geography, was strongly challenged. And what it did, it proved with evidences that humans were just another species who were subjected to the laws of environment like other species. Okay, so this is one thing. Then I'll change the paragraph, or I can write in the same paragraph, but my suggestion to you is that don't make your paragraphs too much lengthy while you're writing your answers, because when you make your paragraphs too much lengthy, ultimately what happens, it becomes like very difficult for the reader to read that. Okay, so break your writing in small paragraphs. So where you're finishing one idea and beginning a type of sub idea also, you can break the paragraph. Okay, so who were subjected to the laws of environment like the other species. Such a viewpoint was highly appealing to the geographers who lacked a general theory to explain the human phenomena. To explain the human phenomena. So it was very appealing to them. With Darwinism, what they ultimately got their general theory. Now they could resort to the environment to show the cause-effect relationship of the human phenomena and thus give the status of science to their discipline. Okay. So by adopting this basic idea of Darwinism in the philosophy of environmental determinism, geographers could provide scientific outlook, could provide scientific outlook to their discipline and elevate its status in academics. ठीक है. So very clearly what they did, they adopted that environmental determinism, and environmental determinism was based on Darwinism, the same idea. ठीक है. This much is clear. So that should be our first point, very importantly. This is how Darwinism very clearly impacted, or geographers knew that there is fault. They knew that some places humans are also becoming very important. Culture becomes more important than environment at places, but their basic objective was to make geography look like a science, and that is why they preferred to adopt this idea rather than the challenging ideas like possibilism or other things, because they found that possibilism and philosophies like cultural determinism were too much subjective, and with subjectivity geography won't be able to develop as a science and couldn't get the status, the desired status. Okay, you can understand this idea was also held in the classical period by Varenius. Can you see why we said before that classical period was the foundation period, when geography's foundations were laid, and later just it has been elaborated in different ways. Okay. So that is the first way in which very clearly it affected. So that is one way. Now there is other way in which Darwinism has had clear impact in geography. So I'll write another way Darwinism promoted determinism in geography was through its profound influence influence on some pioneer geographers. And we can give examples. Two examples यहाँ पर you take. For example, Frederick Ratzel was highly influenced and went on to write his anthropogeography. Styled on determinism. He and his exemplar publication influenced so many future geographers like E.C. Semple, who went on to develop determinism in geography. Similarly, another such pioneer scholar was W.M. Davis, who adopted determinism following his leaning towards Darwinism. Davis influenced many future American geographers in developing determinism or in adopting determinism philosophy. ठीक है. So though there were two ways in which they were Darwinism ultimately what it did, it led to the development of determinism in geography. Are we clear about this? Tell me. Are we clear about this much? Conclusion, you can talk about this intoxication with Darwinism and determinism lasted till Second World War. We know. Conclusion में लिख सकते हैं. And as soon as geographers got other opportunities to show their subject as science, they discarded them. ठीक है. We have already seen when they got other type of method, other type of approach to show that their subject was science, during the quantitative revolution period, when they adopted not environmental determinism but other forms of determinism like economic determinism. ठीक है, so that can be your conclusion. ठीक है, so if you write, suppose I was writing conclusion, I would say this intoxication with Darwinism and environmental determinism lasted till Second World War. In the post-war period, geographers have used other forms of determinism like quantitative revolution based on economic determinism. Economic determinism. So quantitative revolution based on economic determinism. So in the post-war period, geographers have used other forms of determinism like the quantitative revolution based on economic determinism to showcase their discipline as a science. ठीक है, so this is how this answer should have been written. आगे बढ़ते हैं. So such scientific determinism professed by Ratzel was echoed by American geomorphologist William Morris Davis, who propounded the concept of ontography. Already मैंने समझाया है. He saw geography as study of relations where by the inorganic shapes the organic, where inorganic is shaping the organic. So where by एक साथ होगा. According to him, any statement of geographical quality elaborates some relationship between element of inorganic control and one of organic response. So we have already seen that according to Davis, geography was systematic discipline and geography had two branches. One was physiography, where you study the physical geography elements, and the second one was ontography, which was human geography. And ontography was essentially what? There you have to prove that how humans are controlled by environmental, or how human activities are explained by the environmental laws. ठीक है. At the same time of early 20th century, another form of determinism was professed by Ellen Churchill Semple in the form of environmental determinism. ठीक है. So before also there was environmental determinism, but now it was exclusively known as environmental determinism. Before it was just loosely referred to as determinism. ठीक है. She was disciple of Ratzel, who developed more extreme stance on determinism. She professed in her book American History and Its Geographic Conditions, written in 1903, Influences of Geographic Environment in 1911. And here she explains the many ways in which environment impacts human life. So suppose if you have to write on environmental determinism, ठीक है, suppose you have to explain the philosophy of environmental determinism, that is the question. So how I'll be explaining the philosophy of environmental determinism? I'll take the idea, I'll first write a general thing, what environmental determinism is, how environmental determinism controls. Environmental determinism says that environment controls the activity of human beings. Parameters of environment like physiography or like topography, climate, drainage, vegetation, etc. These are doing what? They are controlling the human activities. And then I will move on and explain further, elaborate this further. When I am elaborating, I will use the 4 points which have been elaborated by Semple in her book. So, yes, she has written 4 units to explain these aspects. So, first if you talk about is environmental influence on physiology of the human beings, on human physiology or physical features, ठीक है. So that is one thing. So factors like climate, distance from the sea, altitude, etc. directly influence human characteristics like stature, skin color, hair color, etc. So many things are just determined by that. For example, if I just give some examples for this, one good example is the color of the skin. Color of skin. So if you talk about the color of skin, we know that those people who are living in tropics, what happens to them? They are exposed to intense sunlight for long durations. So what will happen? If suppose it is so, can I say you will develop a tan if you are exposed to sunlight? You'll ultimately develop a tan, which is actually as a result of collection of melanin in skin in short term. So in short term it is there, but in the long term what will happen? This dark skin or genetics would do what? Genetics would adopt dark skin trait, and that is why the people living in the tropics, they have darker skin. There are other examples you can give, and one example we can definitely talk about is the Mongoloid. Suppose Mongoloid races. Let us take the Mongoloid race. So Mongoloid have many features, like generally they have short stature. So short stature, why they have shorter stature? Because they evolved in hilly terrain of Mongolia. Okay, so this race evolved in the hilly terrains of Mongolia, and here what happens in hilly terrains, if you have short stature, that means your center of gravity is low. ठीक है. So low center of gravity provides better stability particularly with respect to carrying load in hilly areas. Say when you are climbing, etc., when you are going up, you are carrying something. Clearly, if you have low center of gravity, it is easier for you. So this became what? Became a genetic trait because it was advantageous there. Similarly, if you talk about mongoloids, others, like one important feature of mongoloids is presence of epicanthic folds in the eyes. So mongoloid eyes are small. All those people having traits of mongoloid, they have smaller eyes like this. They will be. So basically, it was because they have evolved where? They have evolved in the temperate Gobi Desert. And in this temperate Gobi Desert, what happens? The westerlies carried lots of sand. So to protect their eyes, what they had to do? They had to keep their eyes shut and see like this. So it was better, it was advantageous. If you open your full eyes, then sand will go in your eyes. Okay. So what they used to do? They used to see like this. Ultimately, with time, it was because it was advantageous. With time, what happened? It became a genetic trait. ठीक है? Yes, if so many people are here, Jubilee is asking, lots of people opt for double eyelid surgery these days. I don't know what this double eyelid surgery is exactly. So if they are opting and they are finding it advantageous, if it is just for fashion, maybe not. If it has actual advantage, then it may become a genetic trait with evolution. Okay. So number of examples we can give. So many examples we can give. Okay. Like एक और example ले लेते हैं coccozoids का. तीनों के example एक एक ले लेते हैं. Yes, genotype, phenotype I will be explaining later on when we will talk about in environmental geography. Human adaptations, human ecological adaptations एक syllabus में हमारे topic है. So there I will explain all those genotype, phenotype, everything. So here I was, three main races are there. One is Negroid. So Negroid का एक example दे दिया मैंने. Mongoloid and Coccozoids. So Coccozoids, number of things, like for example Coccozoids. Yes, Chinese people have the same, these epicanthic folds. India also, because northeast and the northern Himalayan population. If you just leave Jammu and Kashmir, so Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Sikkim and northeast, okay, actually they are migrants who have come from China and Mongolia. We will later talk about two type of migration streams were there. Okay, so we'll talk about the Paleo Mongoloid stream was there, and then later on there was the New Mongoloid stream, and as a result of which they are present here in India, and that is why we find that such traits are present in them. ठीक है? Yes, southeast countries also same. So Coccozoids, if you talk about, Coccozoids are basically the Europeans race which is there. So Coccozoids, number of things are there, like for example, we will find that out of all these, Coccozoids have lots of body hair. ठीक है? Mongoloids also have less body hair. If you talk about the Negroids, they also have less body hair, but Coccozoids have huge body hairs. So again, why they have body hair? Because they have evolved in cold climates. Cold climates. So when you are present in cold climates, you know, if you have body hair, here what it does, hair traps air in between. So body hair, what it does, it traps air particles in between the body hair. So what will happen? Air is a poor conductor of heat. As a result, what will happen? You will not lose too much of heat. So it will keep your body warm. Okay? So there can be so many examples. We'll later talk about when we'll talk about the race, when we'll talk about the human ecological adaptations. There you will get more examples of this. But that is the first thing which simple very clearly talks about. Okay? So that is one. Then second is the psychological effects of the environment. Psychological effects of the environment. So here actually इसमें heading type से नहीं पढ़ा हुआ है, but heading उसमें डाल दो physiological effects of environment. Here it is psychological effects of environment. Rahul here is asking why not this eye thing happened in other desert areas. Rahul, I have talked about this before also. Do you remember that we talked about that Islamic culture and they having turban and wheels, and we said that desert is presenting a different or a set of opportunities, and depending upon your own development, your own cultural tool, you will choose among those opportunities. So in other desert like the Arabic desert, people chose other possibilities which were there, other choices. Okay. Psychological effects of environment. Environment also affects the cultural aspects of human life, such as religion, literature, mode of thought. We have so many examples we have given. अभी मैंने जो Islamic वाला example दिया, and how the turban and the wheel became important, how we talked about in their architecture, for example, take Islamic architecture. You will be finding that water bodies would always be associated with that architecture. So we have talked about that. There would always be minarets. So it would always be associated with that minaret kind of things. So again, why? Because so that the sand cannot collect in that, over that. Okay? So very clearly, if you talk about here what is happening, even architecture is influenced by the climate. Simple gives several examples. She gives example of Eskimos. Okay? Today we don't call them as Eskimos. They are called by their local names, regional names, the tribal names, because they don't find it good to call it Eskimo, call themselves Eskimo. So for Eskimo, if you look into Eskimo culture, hell is a place of extreme darkness and cold. Darkness and cold. You know, like in Indian culture, if you look Hinduism culture, we are talking about hell is a place where people are getting burned. Have you heard about this? That hell is a place where you are being burned, like some would suggest that you are put in a oil, very hot oil, and you are getting fried or something like that. But in the Eskimo culture, it is what? It is a place where darkness and cold, very dark and very cold. Yes, कढ़ाई में तलते हैं इंडिया में hell को, but in Eskimos it is like this. So you can very clearly understand that why it is so, because if you talk about the polar, subpolar regions, they have to endure 6 months of very cold and very dark. You know, polar nights are 6 months. So there is 6 months of, almost 6 months of darkness and extremely cold situation, climate. So it is very clear that for them they don't enjoy this, and that is why this climatic trait has entered in their culture. Like same हम इंडिया की बात करें तो India is experiencing summer for longer period. It is opposite, yes, totally opposite in case of India. India is a tropical country. Summer season is much longer in case of India. So our hell is just opposite of this. ठीक है. She gives example of Buddhism. एक और example देती है, very interesting example of Buddhism. Why don't they migrated to poles? Who didn't migrate to poles? Okay, so she gives an example of Buddhism, and in Buddhism she talks about that Buddha, if you talk about, his objective was to achieve nirvana. And nirvana is basically what? It is a stage where all physical activity, bodily activity cease. You are living your life, but you have got connected with the Almighty and you are doing everything with mind without even moving your physical body. Now what she says that in tropics, because this Buddhism was developed or Buddha was present in tropical region. And in tropics what happens, there is lots of heat and humidity. Normally what happens, during heat and humidity, you don't like to work, physical work. People don't like to do physical work. It is difficult to do physical work. Okay. As a result, this was unknowingly developed by Buddha. This was the objective which was unknowingly. He even didn't would have thought कि कल को कोई sample आएगी and she will dissect her philosophy, his philosophy like this, Buddhism like this, but it is what it is. Okay, so again, he unknowingly ultimately opted for what? A situation where he don't have to work, physical work. Okay, so that is basically what? That is nirvana for her. So again, you can give so many examples. These two examples were particularly given by Semple. Okay, you can give your own examples. It is up to you. Environmental influences on, third is environmental influences on social, economic and social development. So here she charts out the amount of basic resources required for securing necessities of life. These resources determine different level of human development. For example, if you talk about steppe climate is not suitable for agriculture, hence here what has developed? Pastoral nomadic communities have developed. We have already given example like mountainous areas are underdeveloped because the topography, one of the basic resource is natural resource is land, flat land. Here it is in scarcity. Same thing if you talk about desert. Deserts will be finding that there is underdevelopment. And why? Because one important natural resource is habitable climate. And again in desert, this important natural resource of habitable climate is lacking, particularly the water resource is lacking. So it is more having harsh climate. Okay. Then she also talks about environmental influence on movement of people, and this she argues that environment represents roots, rivers or barriers that enable or constrain the movement of the people. So it is very clear. For example, you tell me, can I say that there is a distinct African culture? Yes or no? Or you take simple, if you talk about here is the Himalayas. Himalayas are present. Can I say south of Himalayas there is a distinct Indic culture, while north there is a distinct Chinese culture. Distinct Chinese culture. ठीक है. So can I say here why this kind of cultural separation has taken place? Can I say because this Himalayas are behaving as a very important barriers to diffusion of culture? Yes or no? Are they not impacting how people are meeting? Suppose I am meeting with someone every day. Can I say it is highly likely that our cultures would be similar? We'll adopt each other's practices. But if I suppose meet someone after maybe once in a life or in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, can I say the ideas that we'll be able to exchange would be very limited? So what these physical barriers do, whether they can be, biggest physical barriers are oceans, you know very well. Oceans are very deep, very large. So people living in one continent, it was difficult, particularly in the past, for them to ultimately interact and share their ideas. Okay? So very clearly what happens there is, they are behaving as barriers to cultural diffusion phenomena, and thus they are doing what they are leading to formation of different cultures. So can you see that how much, according to Semple, how much the environment affects our daily life, affects our daily life. Okay? Now tell me, can I say, if suppose I have to criticize environmental determinism, can I take all these 4 elements of environmental determinism and write also to the contrary? Yes or no? Tell me. Like start करते हैं first, physiological effects of environment. ठीक है? Can we say that okay, it is fine that there has been physiological effects of the environment in the past, but with the technological development, can we say that today we are living in an era of genetic engineering, where we can produce clones? Already we are talking about designer babies. Tell me, can I say with such level of technological development, can we say that such physiological effects of environment have been reduced? Have they not been reduced? Clearly they have reduced. Today the debate you must be knowing about genetic engineering and designer babies is all about humanity. We can do it any time. Why governments are not allowing, countries are not allowing? Because we definitely know that there is something called humanity. And what is humanity? Humanity is the diversity of humans that exist. Okay? It is in the diversity of the human beings that are existing. If all become same, then definitely we are no more humans. We have become machines. So this diversity is what we call it as the humanness. Okay? So that on this moral grounds, yes, ethical and moral grounds, most of the countries are not allowing. But we have reached to such levels of technology. Then psychological effects of environment. Psychological effects of environment. Tell me, can I say today the Western culture which is essentially associated with market based mechanisms, with capitalism, can we say that such Western culture has become a global culture? Yes or no? It has become a global culture, and people, we are adopting this culture without any issues, without any impact of the environment. For example, I remember one very famous psychologist was there. In fact, he was psychologist working in management. So Mayo was his name. So Mayo was and his colleagues were awarded for doing what? For selling refrigerator to the Eskimos. Clearly you can understand, Eskimos ऐसी जगह पर रहते हैं, there is hardly any, if you talk about temperature, if you talk about, it is always already very low. So why they would be needing refrigerator? Again, they were able to brainwash the Eskimos and tell about the advantages of refrigerator, etc., and they succeeded. Clearly now, if you go in these countries, people are using so much technologies which are ideally they don't require. Today you take the case of India. Originally in India, the concept of sharing was more important. And the concept of sharing was based upon the fact that our resource base is small, our population is what? Base is large. So if you look into Indian cultures, like for example, you might have seen that आजकल का जो लोग है वो जो अर्बन गाइज जिनको हम बोलते हैं, urban elites, what we call them as, and most of us want to pretend that we are also urban elites. So most of these people will do what? If suppose they go in someone's house and they find कि सामान कुछ इधर उधर फालतू की चीज़ें पड़ी हुई हैं, like कबाड़ी type of things, and they would be like, oh, so much dirty house. Although they are Indians, but they would say what, oh, so much bad. What type of habit they have developed actually? They have developed a habit of use and throw. And this use and throw habit has come from where? From the West. I have, if you remember, I have before also told you, if you talk about this West, this was the resource base and this is the population. So this is population, this is resource. In India, it is reverse, almost reverse. So in such type of scenario, tell me, wasn't it very logical? Wasn't it very logical that a culture would develop which was based upon sustainable consumption and recycling? Tell me yes or no. Sustainable consumption and recycling. It was but obvious that such type of culture would evolve. And that was the culture which was present in India. So you'll be finding that old people, they will have habit of not throwing things. We want to throw things, but our parents, they would say नहीं फेंक क्यों रहा है, रख ले, उसको वहाँ पे रख दे. And it might make the house look not very clean, but again what? Suppose if you need something in future, you need not buy, you need not again produce. Many things can be recycled and used. Okay? So the urban elites I am talking about, they don't have the sense of the ecological need of the land. Okay? They are just followers of a culture which is a kind of foreign culture, alien culture. Okay? So that is basically again one example where we can say that now what is we are following a kind of this is basically whatever we are following, it is a kind of Protestant culture which actually evolved in Europe and has spread throughout the world without any specific aspects related with population resource, environment resource. Everybody is now following the same type of culture. Everybody is busy in the use and throw. Okay? And we'll see this culture is referred to as the consumerist culture. Okay? So such consumerist cultures are now almost present everywhere, or someone who is smart and not using the consumerist culture, people will look to him like kitna backward bichara. Okay? So that is the level of delusion we have reached. Okay, so psychological effect of the environment, environmental influence of economic and social development, economic and social development. ठीक है, एक और एग्जांपल देता हूं जो पिछला वाला था, साइकोलॉजिकल इफेक्ट्स ऑफ एनवायरनमेंट. Today, can you see my shirt has little changed? Yes or no? बताओ मुझे. It is still checked, but color is changed. So why it changed? Because yes, it is full sleeves. Because I was advised by my staff. Yes, not blue. I was advised by my staff to please change my shirt. And ultimately, I had to find one shirt. It is not. You can see it is not even fully pressed. And why it was advised? Because according to them, they told me that it doesn't looks good that you are always wearing same shirt. And today I was going live on YouTube for the test discussion, so more outside people will be seeing. So it doesn't gives good impression to a teacher. You should look like a very big teacher who has lots of money, everything. The question is why I need. These days I am not going out. I am full day sitting at home, and only when I am wearing the shirt, only when I am taking the class. Okay, rest of the time I am not taking. I am not wearing the shirt. I am just wearing my t-shirt, normal t-shirt. So I can reuse. There is no perspiration because full time I am sitting just below the air condition and it is very cold. So why I need? There is no need. Every day if I wash, what will happen with continuous washing? Clothes also become old. So there is no need. But we are living in a culture where we are judged more by what we wear, how much we spend, rather than what is actually inside us, and it is actually unfortunate. This is what consumerism has done to the people. They have become machines who are being utilized by some rich people, some rich guys who just want to play with money. Okay? So that is the psychological effects of the environment. Then environmental influence of economic and social development. Again, I have told you, mountains, if you talk about, we said they are underdeveloped areas. And in mountains, we can give example of Japan, which is mountainous, but it is one of the most industrialized nations of the world. There they have developed so much hard work they have done. Because of that hard work, they have reached to these levels now. You know, Japanese population is very, very famous for its, if you talk about, very famous for its disciplined way of living life. And they have developed, in even those constrained conditions, they have developed a civilization, a culture which is a very exceptional example. Okay? So, although it is, yes, it is an exception, but there is no doubt they developed it there only. Okay? Similarly, if you talk about desert, we said deserts are underdeveloped areas of the world. But can I say, in same desert area, there is Israel. Israel, what it did? Israel converted, where Israel is there, it is referred to as Negev desert. Negev desert. So, what they did, they used a specific type of drip irrigation technique, and this is referred to as Qanat irrigation. So, through this method of irrigation, what they have developed? They converted part of the Negev desert into a green area. This same method is now being used by China in the Xinjiang at a very large scale, and now they are greening the Xinjiang region. You must be aware about that. So, again, if humans take endeavor, if they have developed the technology, we can say that the limits we cannot see. Maybe we will reach to very, very high levels where the influence of environment is too much reduced. Whether it would be fully reduced or not, that is another issue, but it would be definitely reduced. Then fourth, environmental influence on movement of people. And here her argument that it is barrier, in the era of jet planes, and today you can see that I am just sitting in one place in Delhi, and I can be seen at so many places in India. Okay, when I am taking some live classes, even some students from other countries are messaging me that some of the topics when I was taking, like in our optional class, open class. So, some students even from outside India, they started messaging me that class was very good and what you are teaching, for which class you are teaching. So, again, we can contradict to what she is saying. Overall, we can say that the relationship between human and environment is too much subjective, and it depends upon number of factors. It depends upon space, time, it depends upon the level of technological development we have reached. And to say that environment fully controls human being is a faulty attitude. As Vidal said, it is a very rigid and mechanistic attitude which should not be accepted. So, you see here it is written, Semple is viewed as a hardcore environmental determinist, as it became clear when she says man is product of earth's surface. This means not merely that he is child of earth, dust of her dust, but that the earth has mothered him, fed him, set him tasks, directed his thoughts, and confronted him with difficulties. She has entered into his bone and tissue, into his mind and soul. Can you see how much strong words? How much strong words? And no doubt it was the case if you go some time back. We'll see. Despite this radical stance, it must be emphasized that she still found space to speak of cultural persistence of racial types in radically different environment, at least among the Anglo-Saxons of Kentucky mountains, in which she described as inextinguishable excellence. We have already talked about this. Another American geographer, Ellsworth Huntington, and he wrote a very famous book, Pulse of Asia. He was disciple of Davis and dedicated the book to him. In this book, he developed the environmental deterministic theme and concludes that geography is concerned with study of physical environmental conditions which influence upon human characters and become the basis of history. So again, he is what? He is an environmental determinist. During the first half of 20th century, geographers used the theme of environmental determinism to justify the status of discipline of geography as a science. In fact, geography came to be known as environmental determinism, where scientific study of how environment affected human activities becomes the core of geographical studies. After World War II, this type of determinism was challenged and there was softening of the stance of environmental determinism. Okay? So you can understand that by World War II, the idea of positivism began to already evolve. And positivism showed that there were other ways in which a discipline can become science. So geographers, as soon as they got this chance, they left this mechanistic concept, this mechanistic approach, and they adopted the other way of becoming science. But there were still hardcore determinists. Now tell me, if hardcore determinists, if someone has spent his entire life in proving that determinism is correct, and suddenly he finds that now no more people are appreciating, ठीक है. So initially ऐसा ही होता है, you might be seeing that, उसको देखा होगा कि sometimes people are arguing to you like they are so much intelligent and everything, etc. in the debate. And what ultimately happens, once you speak some important very logical words and other people also support you, they would be on what? Back foot पे आ जाता है कि ठीक है, it is okay, what you are saying is correct, but what I am saying is also logical, so let's take a middle path. Have you seen this attitude? Because at least the middle path would ensure that there is some relevancy. Yes, like Trump did yesterday, like there is some relevancy. Okay. So can you understand now the Griffith Taylor of Australia and his stop and go determinism? Before the Second World War, he was a hardcore determinist. But later on, what happened? He himself softened his stance and he developed the stop and go determinism. And why he developed stop and go determinism? Because he could very clearly see that if he didn't adopt new ideas, he would become irrelevant. So that is what is written here. In continental Europe, determinism attracted serious criticism even early. For example, in Germany, Alfred Hettner proposed that instead of talking about necessary and deterministic influences of nature on humanity, a more sophisticated conception. So it was Hettner who was critical in Germany. Sophisticated conception might be one that stresses how nature merely restricts the number of opportunities available. So he was also talking about this balance. Similar stance was seen in France, where Vidal and later French geographers criticized the environmental determinism philosophy and developed a counter stance of possibilism. Already we have seen that. Such softening of stance also came from within environmental determinists. For example, it was the works of Griffith Taylor, who wrote a book in 1951, Geography in the 20th century. Here he contrasted his earlier geocritic determinism. Geocritic determinism is what? Geological type of determinism, where topography was for him very, very important. So geocritic determinism opinion and developed a stop and go determinism. And in this stop and go determinism, here he saw that natural environment in a given region charts out main road along which humanity will inevitably develop in that region. However, people involved will be like police officers controlling the traffic along this road. They would be able to alter the traffic for some time and to some extent, but not for very long. Not for very long. ठीक है? Can you understand that in a way what he's saying is very correct, very logical. Can you see today this same thing is happening? We were able to control the traffic, stop the traffic for some time. But what has happened with COVID-19? It has interrupted totally how we are doing. Now we are talking about no, ecology is important. We should talk about balance. We should also respect environment, etc., etc. Okay? So again, that is basically what? It is very clearly, it is happening. And this new determinism, this stop and go determinism is a very important philosophy today. We have to understand our limits. We have to understand that we call ourselves as special species. We are something special. Bhagwan ne chutti leke banaya. Because we are able to control so many things of the environment. Okay, fine. But if we look into the history of species, we will be surprised to know that so many other species did the same thing. They altered the environment to very great extent in their own ways. In fact, the first species on the earth itself, yaad hai? We talked about Gaianism. The first species on the earth itself did that. That is, prokaryotes, bacteria were there, the first species. And what they did? They respirated, they respirated oxygen out. And what they did photosynthesis and they released oxygen. Ultimately, what happened? They were born in water, they were living in water. Water became so much oxygen rich that they could not themselves survive. And thus evolution of eukaryote bacteria occurred, from which all the species of the world today have evolved. Still there are prokaryotes, but they are very limited. They are just like in our stomach, they are living in anaerobic conditions, they can only survive, where there is lack of oxygen. So same thing in a way we are also doing. We are also altering the environment to such an extent that maybe tomorrow we will also not survive. We will alter it to so much extent that our own survival would become very difficult. So maybe and maybe not, depending upon our own endeavors. So it is very clear that if we don't change our habits, environment would survive with or without humans. And if humans are removed, what will happen? You can understand everywhere it would be very good for the other species. It would again become very green. All these blotches which we have created, they would be ultimately gone over a period of time. Nature will take care of that. So what Griffith Taylor is saying, in a way it is correct. We cannot alter the course of history or the future that is there. The nature, the limits that nature has set. Maybe it is true that we will ultimately become extinct after some time. It has happened with almost all the mammals. So there is no logic to think that it will not happen with us, just because we think that God took a holiday and created us. Okay, it is same like Indians thinking that we are actually competing with China. Okay, so by 1950s, the technological changes as well as changes within the discipline. So, technological changes and changes within the discipline brought about a change in the deterministic stance. Thus, environmental determinism gave way to a more scientific form of determinism, which was reflected in the philosophy of logical positivism and quantitative revolution, and it was essentially economic determinism. These themes subordinated humans to some common phenomena which were of economic nature. It was clear in assumptions like rational economic human, where voluntarism gave way to determinism. By late 60s, such mechanistic concepts of human geography came under severe criticism, due to which scientific determinism of quantitative revolution gave way to a more possibilistic themes like humanistic geography and structuralist geography. We'll see. Okay, we'll talk about these later on. But are you now comfortable in writing about determinism and environmental determinism? Tell me. So, two different type of questions which I talked about are written here. Discuss the concept of determinism and its development in human geography. Question number 1, you should be taking narrow view or broad view of determinism. Will you take the narrow view or the broad view? Very clearly, I will be also taking broad view, because here it is talking about development in human geography. But for the second, it is already written environmental determinism. So, I will be taking the narrower view. Okay. Moving on to our next philosophy, that is possibilism. So, possibilism, although the theme of possibilism was propounded by French geographer Vidal de Lablache at the end of 19th century and early 20th century, glimpses of possibilism can be seen in the works of earlier geographers, which definitely had impact on Vidal. Okay. So many people had impacted Vidal. For example, this idea of subjectivity and subjective reality opposed to the deterministic theme has already been proposed by Kant in his concept of noumena and phenomena. So, he was already talking about that, this kind of possibilities which are there. This perspective was also visible in the cultural writings of Karl Sawyer as well as Ratzel's anthropogeography too. So, they have glimpses, they were not exactly possibilistic, but their writing was such that it provided hope that nothing is definitive. Okay. Karl Ritter was also environmental determinist, or determinist, better say determinist. Ratzel was also determinist, but still they provided some scope. Vidal was influenced by these earlier geographers while propounding his concept of possibilism. The term is often used to signify a theoretical approach to study of human environment relationships, whereby human initiative is recognized as significant. In his concept of possibilism, Vidal states that human beings select uses of environment out of the many possibilities presented by the environment or nature. This choice of possibilities depends upon culture, which is both inherited and continuously elaborated through the interaction with the environment. So, Lamarckian perspective that we inherit culture. It was a more determinist perspective. So, geography determines the culture, but no doubt culture also evolves with time. So, he just utilized this perspective, but ultimately evolved this perspective. Okay. So, it is basically what we depending upon what is our culture, we'll just choose from these possibilities. I have given so many examples. Like for example, I talked about coal. For earlier human beings, coal was something what? Before the Europeans went to North America, coal was something what? It was simply a black rock to the red Indians living there, because they didn't know how to use it. As European went there, they developed it as a very important resource. They developed industries on the basis of that. Okay. Today, for example, we are talking about water. Suppose water is essentially what? It is, we use, it has so many type of uses, water. But can I say we have already in fact developed the technology of using hydrogen energy. So now we have actually the technology, only thing is it is very costly, where we can basically utilize water for producing energy as well. So today, what is water? Maybe it can become a very, very important, significant resource in the future. If you reach to the level of nanotechnology, full development of nanotechnology, will be able to alter the nanostructures of objects, and we can produce anything out of anything. That is the level of development we can reach, the choices we can make if we have that technology. So just nature is what? Nature is giving us only range of opportunities. Depending upon our technology, we will be able to choose from these possibilities. Okay? Thus different uses, all of them economically valid, could be made from of the same portion of earth surface. Coal and black rocks का example यहाँ लिखा है. In other words, according to particular culture and associated technological knowledge, humans' actions select certain possibilities and relate them to each other to create new forms of social, economic and political organizations to serve its need. Thus, Vidal saw man-nature relationship is more balanced. Human-environment relationship for him was what? It was highly balanced one than was acknowledged by environmental determinists. The form of this relationship varied depending upon the variability of the cultures. Thus, to exemplify this variability, Vidal adopted a regional approach. We have already seen he was regional geographer. He identified river valleys of France as distinct regions, calling these as pays. Each of these pays had their own genere divide, which reflected the variety in human-environment relationship. Human-environment relationship. You know, these drainage basins, they have their own type of culture, evolves in each of these drainage basins, and depending upon the technological tools that people have. This more moderate and balanced view of possibilism, very important point, later gave way to a more extremist view of possibilism, which tended towards voluntarism, where human will was seen as supreme and the destiny of humans was considered to be there in their own hands. This is reflected in the statement of Lucien Febvre, there are no necessities but everywhere possibilities. Now, see why this happened. I have told you repeatedly that geographers tend to see things as balanced. When outsiders come in, they would do what? They would take more extreme viewpoints. So, what actually was the thing? Why this What was the difference in the view of Vidal and Fabre? So, Vidal, we know that Vidal was a geographer. Now, let me or tell me, can I say geographer by training? By training, they are accustomed to studying phenomena in geographical space. Yes or no? So, suppose if Vidal was studying human environment relationship, he was studying the distribution of this phenomena in different type of geographical space. Like for example, he would have thought about the I can say here fertile plains, or better write humid plains. Then if you talk about semi arid, suppose steppe plains, or other is desert. Now tell me, if I here take the case of carrying capacity, can I say the carrying capacity here would be high? In this case, the carrying capacity would be lower, and in the deserts, the carrying capacity would be even lower. Yes or no? Tell me. So, can we say that because of his geographical background, it was inevitable for Vidal to come to a conclusion where he will come to a conclusion leaning towards the balance. Here we can very clearly see here that each geographical space provides its own range of opportunities. Its own range of opportunities. ठीक है? For example, suppose I am talking about polar area and I become crazy and I think कि no matter what I will grow and produce rice in Antarctica. Rice in Antarctica. Tell me that Antarctica, does it gives such range of opportunity to produce rice? Yes or no? I don't think it gives me opportunity. Maybe if I become crazy and maybe I develop a technology, maybe in a limited area by creating artificial temperature, etc., I would be able to grow rice, limited rice in Antarctica, artificially producing the artificial climate, soil, everything. Or suppose, but tell me, will I be able to do over this over very large area full of Antarctica? No, I won't be able to do. ठीक है. Suppose if I like become really crazy and become a very crazy scientist, and I think कि कुछ भी हो, I have to grow rice in Antarctica. So what I did, I created actually a technology through which Antarctica becomes warm area and rice can be grown. But if I suppose do that, will myself or humanity survive? Will I be able to survive along with humanity? It is very difficult to foresee that. There is a balance in environment. Antarctica, the coldness which is there in Antarctica, it balances out many things. Okay? So we won't be able to survive. So again, what will happen? If we go out, then environment will bring back ourselves or even remove ourselves out of the control. So environment is giving us only range of possibilities. That is why you will find several people many times saying that don't interfere with nature. Ecologists saying again and again, don't interfere with nature. Like we'll later talk about the river interlinking project. And whenever you'll find that whenever BJP government comes to power, what it does, all these type of environment damaging projects, they come to the fore, they become very important. They are mainly technocentric in their view. So for them, every solution is development of technology, but not necessarily. Maybe it would create so much bigger problems. We don't know exactly. There are more cheaper and easier ways to do that without modifying so much of environment. Like we'll later talk about watershed technique, watershed management. Maybe if we develop this river interlinking, there is a possibility that we will be able to, or maybe will alter the hydrological system to so much extent that there would be unknown consequences of that. We don't know. Future we don't know. Climate change, this whole concept we'll see, it is based upon the concept of surplus and deficit rivers. As climate change progresses, the pattern of precipitation changes. We don't know which rivers would remain surplus and which would become deficit, which would be deficit. So we invest so much money, and in future again what will happen? It would be of no use. Okay? So that is why several people. So can you understand Vidal's mind, why he opted for a balanced approach? Now let us read Lucien Febvre mind. Why he opted for a more extreme viewpoint. Lucien Febvre was historian by training, and being historian, his idea was basically what? His approach was to arrange phenomena in time. Arrange phenomena in time. And if you arrange phenomena in time, so we know that initially human beings were hunters and gatherers. Our technology was very limited. So this was the human environment relationship. We were more like animals with very less cultural development. Then we developed other things, like for example, we developed shifting agriculture. Slowly we ultimately developed some early forms of agriculture which is sedentary, settled agriculture, sedentary agricultural practices. Then as our technology further improved, we ultimately developed more intensive form of agriculture, that is subsistence agriculture. Subsistence agriculture. As our technology further developed, we developed another form of agriculture with more productivity and profits. It was commercial agriculture. Is it true or not? Then as our technology further improved, we developed industrialization. Industries, technological development occurred. After this, there have been so many, revolutions which occurred ultimately. Like for example, there was information technology, tech revolution. We are almost on the verge of biotechnology. Already it is going on. Revolution is going on. And can I say, in future, we will develop nano technology revolution. I am skipping so many, but that is what is happening. We will develop a nanotechnology revolution. And if I take this further away, can I say maybe in future we will reach, if it goes all like this, we will reach voluntarism? Yes or no? Yes or no? Isn't in time, if I arrange things, does the things appear like this? We'll be reaching to, maybe we'll reach to voluntarism. So because his training was to study phenomena in time, can you understand why he developed this kind of extreme stance on possibilism? Because he was trained differently, and he thought that maybe the way we are going will ultimately reach voluntarism. Okay? So can you understand why such kind of change in possibilism came? Because after the death of Vidal, it was after his influence declined and he died ultimately, it was these people who historians had huge role in the development of possibilism, and that is why possibilism developed a more extreme stance. And actually, the Lucien Febvre possibilism was not the possibilism, the essence of possibilism. What was the essence of possibilism with which, the spirit with which Vidal developed possibilism? Tell me. It was the balance between human environment relationship. Okay, the balance between the human environment relationship, and this balance was lost in this form of possibilism. So how you can actually call it as possibilism? It is a kind of misnomer. It should have been rightly more called as voluntarism rather than possibilism, because actually possibilism was highly balanced. Okay. Such a change in stance of possibilism was primarily related with the involvement of historians like Lucien Febvre, who played active role in the popularization of possibilistic theme. Due to their training, historians had tendency to differentiate human environment human environment relationship in time. They started to consider that environment was significant for the establishment of human arrangement or settlements. When these are established, other processes like social, economic, political become more dominant in determining human activities. In other words, environment played important role in determining human activities in earlier civilizations, while modern civilizations were more governed by socio-economic forces. Such a view later paved for development of economic and cultural determinism. Although cultural determinism was not actually never so much strict, it was not extreme, it was more balanced, near to what was Vidal was saying. Despite this extreme stance, it was if you have to actually यहाँ पर गलती से cultural आ गया है, it should be historical determinism, you write. Correct that, it is historical determinism. Economic and historical determinism. When I will explain Marx, then you will understand what is this historical determinism in more detail. Despite this extreme stance, it was Jean Brunhes who adopted a possibilistic view much closer to Vidal. According to him, environment plays important role in determining the elements of the world we live in. However, man also carries in his mind certain representation of the world which partly depends upon him. He called it as the psychological factor. So, there were two factors which determined human activities. One was environmental factor and the second one was psychological factor. So, this psychological factor which mediates the human environment relationship. Thus, Brunhes rejected the division of human geography into passive and active. Okay, so he rejected both determinism and the possibilism of Fabre. Although possibilism was the main theme of French school, it also spread to other areas. Russia in the form of indeterminism, America, cultural determinism of Karl Sawyer, break of quantitative revolution, humanism is in a way possibilism, we will see. Possibilistic school of thought has been mainly associated with French school. So, however, it ultimately spread to other parts of the world. Possibilism found clear expression in indeterminism school of Russia, where it believed that it was human economic needs which determined the activities of human beings. In Russia, possibilism or indeterminism was state sponsored, where Russian state wanted to inculcate a feeling of superiority of human spirit vis-a-vis environment or nature, so that harsh environmental conditions of Russia can be overcome. Such a philosophy was most evident in the works of Pokrovsky and Gerasimov. Pokrovsky was of the view that development of technology has provided humans with necessary tool to control the environment. United States, the possibilistic school was associated with Berkeley School of Karl Sawyer. It achieved full recognition that study of culture is key to understand the complex and multifaceted results of human interaction with the environment. Cultural geography, which it inspired, gave possibilism its full cognitive dimension, opening it to other research along this line and to new themes relating to environmental perception and behavior, which later became in United States, 40s and 50s basically. We will see in environmental geography. Possibilism also found expression in Britain in the form of probabilistic philosophy of probabilism of O.H.K. Spate. He was of the view that some possibilities are more probable than the other. That is why it is referred to as probabilism. Now, probability is what? Probability is chance. Okay? Probability is something of a chance. Can we say that in determinism Russia was having influence of Lucien Febvre? Yes, in a way, because this type of extreme form of possibilism was promoted by French school all over the world. Okay? Thus, he provided, so some possibilities are more probable than the other, and we have already talked about probability is chance. chance is essentially what? Which is not in my control, which is what? Something external. Okay? So thus he is bringing out some external idea and he is trying to balance. Thus he provided significance to the element of chance along with the endeavor of humans. Thus through his philosophy of probabilism, Spate again tried to achieve balance, which formed the core of Vidalian philosophy of man-nature relationship. Beginning with quantitative revolution in 1950s, the theme of scientific determinism seemed to prevail over the idea of possibilism. During this period, humans were subjected to natural laws of economic nature, and human element with respect to his normative aspect was totally excluded from geographical studies. However, by late 60s, such scientific determinism came under severe criticism and gave way to humanistic approach in 1970s. With advent of humanism, human element along with the normative culture became center core of geographical studies. Okay? So again, human normative value and their related subjectivity were focal points, rather were overemphasized, leading to the neglect of role of environment and external factors. This has clearly again led to rise of environmentalism in recent times, which tries to again re-achieve the balance between human and environment, which was the essence of Vidalian philosophy. Okay? So humanism will see everything is human. You remember the example of dream? Even if it doesn't exist, mind is producing everything. So there is no such external reality. So again, it is what? It is extreme form of possibilism. Okay, a very extreme form of possibilism. So again, the balance was being lost. Even during the quantitative revolution period, we have seen that it is economic determinism. All was economic determinism. That means only our economic factors are important, other factors are relegated to the background. Okay, they are totally relegated to the background. If our economic needs demand, we will grow rice in Antarctica. If some problems arise, what we will do? We will again develop technology to solve that problem. Okay? So this is a kind of economic determinism. Tell me, if I have to suppose criticize possibilism, how you will be writing a critical analysis of possibilistic approach? How you will be writing this? Can I say that the idea of Vidal, the possibilism of Vidal, there is nothing to criticize. Criticism is of what? Criticism is of the extreme possibilism which was promoted by the likes of Fabre and others. Criticism is of indeterminism and economic determinism, historical determinism. These type of extreme possibilistic themes are to be criticized. We will be criticizing them. Like for example, if you talk about, can I say, this type of extreme viewpoint is the reason why we are rapaciously exploiting the environment? Yes or no? This is the reason why we are so much exploiting the environment. And ultimately, can I say this exploitation, this mindless exploitation is even threatening our own survival. We don't know tomorrow we will exist or not. We saw this abhi corona virus. ये तो बिल्कुल it was like a very not too much harmless, not too much harmful type of virus. Its mortality rates were quite low. related with this virus. We don't know what type of viruses are trapped in the polar ice. How many dangerous type of viruses are trapped? As soon as this polar ice melts, all these viruses would be released in the environment, and which one will finish humanity, we don't know. Okay? We don't know exactly. Maybe we are talking about 5-10 million years. Maybe will be counted among those mammals who even couldn't reach 5 million years, and we are calling ourselves as the most superior mammals of all times. So what it has led to, it is the extreme stance of possibilism which died in the post-Vidalian phase. This has been the problem. This is the main issue with possibilism. Otherwise, possibilism was always the core, the essence of possibilism was always the balance between human environment relationship. In fact, for Vidal, you can understand, he never called geography as a human science. For him, geography was always a natural science. He was very clear that you cannot separate Bayes and generative by. Okay? So this is basically the case of this. Now there are two questions, question number 1 and 2. On Monday we'll discuss them. Okay? You try to write them in between. Critically analyze this possibilistic approach. I have given you an idea how to write this, and dichotomy between determinism and possibilism is real. Comment. Surajit is asking, extreme stance of environmental determinism was not harmful, but that of possibilism is harmful. You cannot, again you are taking sides. Why you cannot have a balanced view? How you cannot say that it was not harmful? Don't you think that it is also harmful and still people are using it to their advantage? For example, you tell me, don't you think that developed countries are trying to tell the developing countries that you are underdeveloped because you don't have climate like us? We have developed in a type of climate environment because of which we are racially superior. So your main problem is not the culture of consumerism and capitalism. Your main problem is the environment in which you are present, that is tropical environment. So how you can say that that extreme view was not harmful? That extreme view has also degraded into the theories of race, superiority of race, and so many other type of delusions. If everything is determined by nature, then what is the need for us to work even? सब एंजॉय करते हैं, why we need to work? Let us stop all these things. Even if you don't have liquor, suppose manufacturing of liquor is not there, there are so many natural substances, you can still get the desired level of nasha and enjoyment. Okay? So that is the problem in taking any of the extreme viewpoints. So never ever, that is why we say never ever take such extreme viewpoints. You can understand यार, एक simple सा बात सोचो life के बारे में. You think about life. We are talking about, we are trying to search life everywhere else, but we are not able to find. We just are speculating कि life यहाँ हो सकता है, वहाँ हो सकता है. Can you understand that life is present on earth because of earth's balanced distance from the sun? Yes or no? Tell me. If Earth was too much near to Sun, would life have been possible? No. If it was far away, life would have been possible. It would have been too cold. Why there is life on Earth? Because of this balance which exists. Take another example. If Earth's size was too much big, can I say the Earth would have retained its original atmosphere, which was toxic? The original atmosphere wouldn't have escaped in outer space, like it is the case with Jupiter, Saturn, atmosphere made of methane. If Earth was too small, even the present atmosphere, it wouldn't have the gravity to retain the present atmosphere. Again, no possibility of life. So, can you see, if you think about life, essence of life is balance, and we will always lose if we lose this essence. Today we are losing this essence about balance, about equality, and you see how much problems are there in the world. Okay? So that is the idea of determinism and possibilism. So broadly हमने समझ लिया what is determinism and possibilism, and you will see we will keep on applying in the concepts as they keep on coming, but this is a very key idea of geography. Okay, so on class on Monday we'll very quickly develop, we'll talk about these questions, and we'll very quickly talk about the dichotomy between physical and human geography, and then we will move on to talk about areal differentiation topic. Okay? Yes, that is the beauty of geography. Pranit is saying due to geography, views are becoming more broad. And this is the nature of geography. Geography has been what? Geography is a like integrative approach. It balances everything out. And it is a very comprehensive, its subject matter is everything. Everything which is important to human beings and human environment relationship, it is all part of geography, and that is the beauty of geography. Okay? So we'll stop for today. So Surajit is asking OHK Spate around which time he was present, around 1940s 50s, same time when more balancing was being done. Okay? So 30s 40s. Yes, there would be answer writing session on Monday. Over. So I am going to stop for now. As you can see, I am very tired. So take this time, and those of you who have joined recently, try to finish the topics which are there in perspectives up till now what we have done. Don't bother about the previous topics at this point of time. Again, I have talked again and again that focus take as a kind of new thing is starting from, fresh start is happening from perspectives in human geography. Okay? Okay. Good night to all of you. Definitely no class tomorrow and Sunday. Saturday, Sunday छुट्टी लूँगा मैं. Monday will meet.